Hello everyone, good evening or good morning, it depends. Well, welcome back at my next video on my YouTube channel or on other platforms. Well, this time I prepared for you a little bit something else, not really phrasal verbs. It is actually also a sort of interesting topic because a lot of people actually speak English, but either very informal or very basic or sort of like which is not really used in a formal or in official style of the English language. So this time I just go through some list and you can see it around me. The list is actually about some phrases, some verbs, some adjectives or nouns even, that how to say it a little bit differently. So I always explain that what is formal, informal, maybe I give you some hint or clue in the sentence or in the context. Not always, because I think that it's quite clear from the things which you can see around me. So the first one is ask. Ask is a standard, very informal, very basic word. And when you want to be very formal, it's better to say in the sentence, inquire. Or ask for, which means actually request in a formal language. But a lot of people actually from the business environment knows request. The next one is book. We all know that from the platforms, from the online conversations, book. But basically very formal and very, especially very formal British, sophisticated kind of language is reserve. Check. We all know that when we travel around, specifically, but check in, check out, like that's a little bit different. But check basically in a formal language means verify. So check it, verify it. Get is actually the basic verb, and of course when it's connected with some prepositions or adverbs, it creates a lot of phrasal verbs. We know that, but basically very formal to say it is receive. Help, and we know that the synonym or basically much formal expression is assist. Need. And much more formal, and also not formal, but also used in a little bit different nuanced situations is a request. So I request something. Deal with, in a colloquial spoken level of the English, in dialogues, conversations, deal with, we must deal with that. But basically a much formal style is handle. Or even manage, or cope with. There are many other different formal expressions for this. The next one is tell. Tell it to me, or tell them, or whatever. It's very spoken colloquial style. But basically, when you actually write a formal letter, or when you speak formally, inform. You have to inform your employees, or you have to inform your head of the department or your boss. Wait for, I think that's sort of like spoken level, but also quite formal, but much more formal or higher level is await, as even the dictionaries say. The next one is fight. Everybody knows fight, also in a metaphorical, in figurative speech. But combat, that's basically military language, combat. But combat is quite formal to say that, like people don't usually use it. Then use, and of course, when we use or make use of something, that's quite formal, make use of something, we can also consume. I wouldn't say that it's actually very, like sometimes it is used in completely different situations. I don't think so, it's somehow synonymical, as they say, but use and consume, yes, in some way it might be actually replaceable. Go. And of course, when we go out or when we leave, then we can actually formally say depart. So just go away or leave, depart. From departure, when we are flying off, taking off, departures. Say sorry. Of course, sorry, we use it all the time, very, very spoken. But basically, when you actually want to be very formal and put it into the letter or into some formal email, use apologize. That's very, very formal and official. Start, that's also in a sport actually, and it's used everywhere basically, but very formal language and contracts or legal language use is using commands. It's coming from Latin and French, so that's much more formal, commands. And we use it in sport, we use it again on a colloquial level, in a spoken language, but basically terminate. And we know that because of the contracts or because of the legal language, terminate. So that's better to say end. Try it on, try it out. We use it in a kind of basic conversations. Even the children know these words, but basically very, very formal is endeavor, which is actually here. But endeavor, I think that we can also say it in a little bit different way. And try has also other synonyms or synonymical expressions like attempt, or we can say examine or strive. There are many more terms, but endeavor is quite formal. The next one is tough. When something is tough, like a tough competition or tough partner, or this is really tough what you told me, that's very informal. But basically very formal language is difficult. Like you don't say in very formal email or letter that that's a tough situation. It's much more difficult situation. Explain, and of course the formal, formally you will say disclose. This is also not very synonymical, but because explain, you just explain me. A lot of people think that it's basically formal language, but it's not, because actually this kind of disclose is much more connected with the legal matters or some information. So yes, basically we can say that that's quite formal language. Set out means to display. Set out has a lot of meanings. Set out is basically phrasal verb, as we know, but set out means also like start off, set out, or yes, start off, or even spread somewhere, even explain. A lot of meanings, but one of the explanations is also display. So actually, what's going on? Display, like show it, present it. Yeah, that's basically set out. Then throw out. Very informal language, throw out somewhere, something out of the window, to the basket, to the waste bin. So, but formally it's eject. Eject, it's used also in technical manuals, or when you have some kind of devices, and you push the button eject and it goes out. It's getting out. Yeah, a CD or tape in the past, but a younger population actually doesn't remember that. Old, we know politically correct now, and in contracts or in some very formal communication we use elderly. Elderly people or elders or elderly, it's much more polite and it's politically correct. Say, that's very actually informal, very colloquial spoken, but basically when you want to say it, formally express. I want to express my feelings, not say my feelings, yeah? Afraid, like being afraid, we use it all the time, but basically fearful is a little bit more formal. For this you have much more actually terms which you can use. So this is not the only one, but for fearful or for being afraid you can say I have a fear, I'm tremulous. It's a little bit like appalling, dreadful, but that's quite expressive. So these terms are quite expressive. The next one is in the end, and in the end we, like everybody can use it, but basically when in other terms, in formal terms, finally, or even ultimately, or even other terms. There are many other terms, but basically this one is sort of like formal. But, I always say it, that but is basically very, very informal. We use it in a language, but not really like it's not basically so common in writing in a letters or in a formal language. Much better is to use however. Yeah, however, comma, and you continue. Wrong, she's wrong, we are wrong, and that's wrong. you can use it easily, but in a formal language, incorrect. So, for instance, the results are incorrect, or the testing is incorrect, or something is incorrect. Go up, go down. Also, these phrasal verbs are quite common and in spoken level, but increase or decrease, the opposite, is much more formal. At first, or at second, first, second, third, yes, but I think that in some project documentation or in a legal documentation, you can really meet with and come across with initially. Initially, it's much better to say. Then somebody's mad, somebody's crazy, yeah, but basically in a formal terms it should be insane. She is insane, he is insane, this is insane. I think they use it also in dialogues in colloquial style, but insane is much more formal. Lucky, when somebody is lucky and he, I don't know, wins $1 million, or he finds $20 on the street, so he is lucky. But basically, in formal terms, it is he is fortunate or she is fortunate. Smart, somebody's smart. Also, the brand of the car. I mean, the style is smart, and smart has a lot of other meanings. But basically, when somebody is smart, is intelligent. So intelligent is better to say in a formal level. Small, well, we understand that. Small, little, many times is actually used in other expressions also, little, small. But basically, and also this is linguistic and quite a language term, diminutive. Diminutive means small, like diminutive, for instance, small house, or tiny, little, something. Also tiny. Tiny is other expression, which is quite informal, tiny, but diminutive. Cheap. We all know that cheap, like we use it in a standard communication, but basically that's inexpensive in very formal terms. Or we can also use, for instance, expensive, and expensive is also like very informal, like standard style, but costly, for instance, would be the last, which I would say, formal term. Costly, it's very costly, or it's very, yes, with high expenses, you can say in business terms, in a contract. So you have many possibilities. The English language is really creative in this way. We can see it from here, how they use it formally, informally, and this is just like a tiny example of so many expressions which you can use and which you can actually get into your mind and start using it either very, very formally and very officially in some letters, documentations, or you can read about that, or when you just speak with your friends and just a basic business conversation, it can be also with informal terms and expressions. Thank you very much. That's all for now, and see you next time.